It's springtime in east central Kansas, and that means it's time to start burning pasture lands and prairie lands. We go through this exercise every spring to beat back weeds, to release nutrients back into the soil, and actually it stimulates the warm season grasses to flush later in the year. The first step to the process is actually making a plan, and that plan should start the fall before the spring that you intend to burn. Typically what you would do is you would walk the area, you decide what the perimeters are for that burned area, and then you begin to actually build fire breaks to prevent the fire from escaping from the area that you wish to burn. The one component of the fire that you really can't control is the weather, and it's one of the more crucial components of a safe burn. You definitely don't want to burn on a really calm day, because any little gusts that occur could blow the fire out of control depending on how strong they are and how long they last. Ideally, you want a steady wind coming from a set direction, somewhere in the vicinity of 4 to 6 miles per hour. Winds over 10 miles per hour could drive your fire out of control in a hurry, and of course variable winds in general just make for a dangerous situation. Anytime the winds aren't favorable, you need to burn on another day. Shortly before the day that you plan to burn, you should gather up all of your equipment, service it, be sure that it's going to work properly. If you're using vehicles of any kind, utility vehicles, ATVs, whatnot, be sure that they're fueled up all the way. And it doesn't take a great deal of equipment to get a burn done, but I would recommend definitely a significant water source. We use a 65-gallon spray tank with a sprayer on a utility vehicle. You need a number of folks that will handle handheld beaters. We call them beaters, but they could also just be flat shovels. It also helps if you have a lighting torch. We use a weed dragon propane torch. Some folks use a liquid fuel drip torch. There are a number of different possibilities for that. So essentially how it goes, once the weather is in good shape, you've got your equipment ready to go, you've got your crew on site, then it's actually time to walk it one more time, actually test the wind, and then work out your strategy. Our project today is to burn about 20 acres of pasture that's overgrown and has become a little bit infested with scrub cedars. The cedars are a bit of a problem in this part of Kansas, and you really have to keep at them to keep them out of the grasslands. Now, the eastern border on this roughly rectangular shaped piece of ground is a pond, so we don't have to worry really about the fire burning through that as long as we control it as it burns up to the edges of the pond. The southern border is a fence line, a property line with my neighbor, and I really don't want the fire to jump there, so we'll pay particularly close attention to running the fire along that line. On the western border, we have a waterway that's lush with green cool season grasses right now, so it won't be too hard to keep the fire from moving across it, but we'll need to keep an eye on it. The north side boundary follows a terrace that was worked into the field before we planted it to grass. Now typically we mow that terrace as a pathway, and so it's fairly green, and the swale just on the south edge of that terrace, which would be in the burned zone, is actually fairly damp in the spring. So it offers a pretty good fire break, an area that we can actually help to keep the fire in the zone that we want to burn. Well, it looks like we have about ideal conditions for burning this pasture today. We have a gentle wind coming from the northwest. It's blowing toward the southeast. We'll go ahead and start our fire up against the pond, which will act as the eastern border of what we call the backfire. And we'll light a line of fire along the southern edge. We'll allow it to burn north, and we'll suppress the flames that want to burn towards the south. And we'll use both a combination of flat shovels to beat the flames out and water from our spray gun. We'll also leave one person stationed at that eastern corner to watch that backfire as it burns north to be sure that it doesn't go anywhere that we don't want it to go. Once we've finished the backfire and we're sure that it's safely burning, it will slowly create a blackened, a fuelless fire break. Then we'll go ahead and work the fires around the rest of the perimeter. The next fire is really to set the edge fire. We don't need to set but one edge fire because we have such a good fire break on the eastern edge in the pond. Well, as you can see, our backfire and our edge fires are burning nicely. The pond is protecting our eastern edge, no problem. It's time now to have some fun and light the head fire. The strategy for lighting the head fire is similar to the other fires. We basically run a line of fire along that northern fire break, allow it to burn downwind, which is really easy, and suppress any of the fire that's trying to move upwind. And we find that that's much easier to suppress than when we're lighting the back fire. Now the head fire is going to actually be driven by the wind, so it's going to catch quickly, it's going to blow up pretty high, and it's going to be fairly spectacular. You can see that the cedar trees, the young cedar trees, have been badly scorched. Don't worry, they'll be dead in a couple of days. They're really dead now, they just don't show it necessarily. But if you take a look out there, you see little pockets of smoke coming up off the ground. We call those smolderers. It's time to go mop those up. The job's not done until all the fire is out. If we leave them there and the wind picks up, it'll fan that up into something that's really hot. Pieces could break off and blow into places and start fires that you don't want to have started. Really, the best way to get those smoldering clumps out is with a combination of shovel work to break them up and then a good soaking with water. Now that the job's done, we can leave Mother Nature to do her job, and in about a month or so, this will be the lushest, greenest portion of all of our pastures. And for more tips on how to maintain your rural property, be sure to check out www.grit.com.